the record button, so it takes about 10, 15 seconds.
All right, you let me know. Ready? All right, it's 12 o'clock straight up. We will begin the MUD 39 meeting. We will call the meeting to order officially. And I know Jim, I think typically takes over kind of the reins of the meeting, so I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but.
Happy to do that unless you can take it yourself.
Well,
You've done enough.
Yeah, let me fight my way through it. And if I need any guidance from you guys, if you will, just direct me. Is that okay?
You've got a deal.
All right. So first of all, let me apologize for missing my first meeting last month as president of the organization. I'd like to say I was just coming out of a 29-day coma, but that wasn't the case. I had just purely had a calendar malfunction. Our College Park meeting is the third Monday of the week and third Monday of the month, and this meeting is the third Wednesday of the month. And I usually just follow one with the other, and just so happened last month, they weren't on the same week. The third Monday and the third Wednesday were two separate weeks. So I totally missed it. I almost showed up a week later until I realized, no, there's no meeting today, Ted. So I apologize to my fellow board members and to the staff for having missed that meeting.
It happens when the first lands on a Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what happened. So I promise not to let that happen again. I apologize to Kevin. I told him what a dumb mistake I made, but now I have it on my calendar, so we won't have that happen anymore. Any comments from the public? All right. So we have the item number 3, consider and act on the request for adjustments or to relieve or relief from the specific charges imposed by the district.
Nothing this month.
None? All right, on to the consent agenda. Here's where I might have a question for you, Brian. So I know typically we would take the consent agenda, approve all the items on it, but I have several questions on a couple of the items on the like 4 and 7 and so forth. So can we just talk about it and then approve it, or we have to break it out?
We pull those out, so any items that you want discussion on, we would have removed from the consent agenda. We would approve the remainder of the consent agenda and then take up the items that were removed from the consent.
All right. So would it be okay? Well, I only have one comment on the minutes. I noticed there was I guess a typographical error. The very top of the minutes, it said the meeting began at 6 o'clock. And then in the description of the meeting, it said it started at noon. That's the only thing I knew. I wasn't here, but I caught that.
Take that off the consent agenda to be approved as revised.
Okay. And then I had questions on items 6 and 7, if that's okay.
6, 7, and consider a motion for consent agenda items number 5 and 8.
All right.
Yeah.
Kevin's making a motion to accept the consent agenda. All right, Director Matthews, we have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, so now you said we're going to pick those items up afterwards.
Correct. So
Okay.
now we would consider a motion to approve item number 4.
So that's the only thing I saw. Any other comments on the minute?
Didn't even see that, so.
We didn't need it.
So with that, any other questions about minutes? So can we get a motion to accept the minutes as presented, as corrected? We have a motion and a second. Second. All those in favor to accept the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I will abstain since I wasn't here. All right. Now we're moving on to item number 6. Is that correct? All right, so I had a question about that, and it was, I'm assuming that this report is all the MUDs. This was on the investment, because it was a $64 million in total. Let me go back.
Securities?
Yes, hold on one second. Let me get to my. So it said it decreased from 60,000 to 55,000, which is a decrease of 44 point something million dollars. And I'm assuming that's for deposits and securities for all the MUDs. Obviously, we don't have that much in MUD 39. So is that how that report is reading?
Securities at Wood Forest or?
Yeah, I'm at the top of the page. It says after June 30th, tax collections and expenses month.
Yes, that is for all the MUDs. Sorry.
Okay. All right, no, that's it. And so when we get that report each month, and forgive us, because Sean's new, Kevin's new, I'm new, so we're gonna have a lot of questions for you guys, if you don't mind. So when we get this report, it's gonna always be for all MUDs. And I'm assuming the decrease is just paid off debt. Some of the mud's paid off some debt somewhere. Is that what it was? Okay.
Your Med 39 report is on page 4.
Yeah, I did see that.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on that? Item number 6, page 12.
So just to clarify, the item number 6, you only see once a quarter, because this has to be prepared by law once a quarter. You won't see it every month. Okay.
Thanks. All right.
Moving on, six be approved.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to accept item number 6 as presented.
A second?
Second, all those in favor of accepting the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Then I just had one quick question on item number 7, which is, well, actually, I have a couple of questions. So I see these delinquent taxes all the way back from 2005. Is that basically the same residents or same people that in 2005, in 2006? Or did somebody not pay in 2005 and then they paid 6, 7, and 8? Or how?
Defer tax, you can defer your tax if you're disabled or 65, over 65. And people will do that and not pay their taxes, and you're only charged based in a percentage of interest. And so it just carries forward if they don't pay it. But you will get paid if they pass or sell the property.
And that's what I was gonna ask. So none of this is ever written off. It's collected at some point.
It is written off. Because you can, personal property is 10 years and real property is 20 years.
But not on a deferral.
Not on a deferral, no. But if there's personal property that's included in that, which could be, we write it off
After
every
10
10
years.
years.
So it looks like our percentage collected is 99.69, which is low, but we'd anticipate that because we anticipate collecting some of that as we go forward, correct?
Correct.
That's how we want to read this.
You're
And,
pretty close. That 39 is pretty close.
Yeah.
You
okay,
don't have that much.
that was my next question, is kind of where month
And I
39 was.
always put the delinquent rolls out there on the Google Drive, 3 times a year, that it was out there last month or the month before, that
Okay.
maybe. And y'all, and we start calling, to touch base with people to see what's going on and start, make payment arrangements if we can.
Okay,
Under 6,000 unpaid on a almost $2
yeah,
million levy is extremely low.
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the procedure more so than, I don't think the number's outrageous at all. Yeah, I just was.
Look at it, you can look at the roll and see which of your neighbors may be on the roll.
Okay. Any other questions about the tax collector's report?
None here.
All right, so can we get a,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Director Matthews has a motion to approve, second by Director Rogers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you for indulging us in that. And now we're moving on to a regular agenda item number 9. Receive the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division report.
Good afternoon. I do not have anything of a general nature, but Ed does have the 2 bullets to cover.
Thank you, Chris.
Good afternoon.
So in your packet, on page 35 is the internal meeting summary for the wastewater treatment plant stakeholder, or not stakeholder, strategic plan. Those are the minutes between the consultant and the SDRA team. So that's internal planning. And then on page 43 is the stakeholder minutes meeting from July 12th. And Sean was there. He asked a lot of good questions.
Good.
The slides that are referenced in the summary are on your Google Drive. So you can access those. We didn't reproduce those to go in your packet because there are a bunch. So what I'm going to do is give you a quick overview of, reduce that 10 pages of minutes down to a quick overview, hopefully less than 5 minutes.
All right.
So there are 2 goals in the meeting on the 12th. The first goal was to take the 7 different types of wastewater treatment options down to a minimum of 2, maybe 3. And we did that. The other goal was to reduce the conveyance options from 3 down to 2. And that was also accomplished. So now I'll go into it. So there's always a baseline consideration, and it's going to be part of the analysis. Baseline is to rehabilitate and replace treatment facilities in place as they become aged and need to be replaced. They've met their design life, their service life. So that's the baseline. That assumes no consolidation. Plants, units are redone at each sewer plant when necessary. And so that basically gets accomplished as the units need to be redone. The next two options were considered as conventional treatment, which is the type of treatment we have today, only by building a plant next to the existing plant 1, buying land, building a new plant there, keep plant 1 operational, and the new construction being separate, so that contractor's not in our business and we're not in their way when they're building the plant. And then the other type of treatment was membrane treatment, same concept, new plant side by side with the old plant. And then when the new plant's finished, put in line, then the old plant would be taken out of service. So those were the 3 treatment options that were adopted, accepted. The next item is the conveyance options. And so there were 3. One is an all gravity, and this assumes consolidation. All gravity from plant 2 to plant 1. There's one area where out of almost 2 miles worth of pipeline, there's one area that's real deep, it's like 35 feet deep. But it eliminates at a minimum 5 lift stations, possibly 7, which helps the overall operation and maintenance of the utility system. That is on the west side of Lake Woodlands, doesn't cross the water, no tunnel under the lake. Large diameter line coming down through various parts of Woodlands. The next option was a gravity force main on the west side of the lake. Same basic route, only this does not eliminate any lift stations, but it does require the upgrading of 2 existing lift stations because added flow. And then the third was a gravity force main option that comes in on the east side of the lake through Hughes Landing, through East Shore, making use of some existing pipes that are rehabilitated to take some additional flow. So the options on conveyance that were accepted were the all gravity line and the gravity force main line on the east side of the lake. You'll see some references to some construction costs. Those are order of magnitude. We are consultants refining those numbers between now and December to not only look at construction costs, but life cycle costs so that we can see what the total picture is for a 50-year cycle and be able to compare everything the same. There was some conversation about acquisition. There is, if we go the route of the conventional treatment on a new plant adjacent to the existing plant or the membrane plant, there's need to buy some property that's east of the sewer plant 1 between the plant and Golden Road. And then you've heard probably about some of the odor complaints that we've received that's north of the sewer plant. So there's conversation about acquiring, there's a wooded strip that's probably about 500 feet wide between the north property line of the sewer plant and Lakeside Cove. And there was conversation about acquiring that to create a larger buffer zone so that somebody doesn't develop the property and we end up with neighbors that complain about a stinky sewer plant. So that's the summary. Be happy to answer any questions on that item.
One quick question. So you covered the 3 points for treatment and 2 points for conveyance. Is that reduction written in this report somewhere in these minutes? That can we just go to it and highlight it?
It's talked about, yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't know if it's as brief as I was.
And one other question I had was regarding obviously, we've never had to do this before. right? But this is the first time we're having to consider rehabilitating treatment plants in terms of either replacing and so forth. So it's going to be a pretty big endeavor overall. So as it relates to MUD 39, what's going to be our position? Are we just going to be one of the voting?
You're one of the
Groups
voting
of the-
stakeholders. In most, it's gonna be a long time before the sewer plant in Harper's Landing in MUD 39 is impacted by any of this, just because it's the newest.
Right.
And at that point, it might be where that becomes just a lift station and it's sending sewage down to the old plant 2 site that eventually comes to a gravity line.
And how far away do you think we are from making any of those decisions? As a, not the MUD 39, but just the collective group of all of us, before we have to come up with a final decision. And
Final decision on whether to consolidate or not is probably January of next year. And then that would in turn take it to another planning level, which is probably from FY 23 through FY 25. Now, I mentioned the acquisition. Look, if you look at page 37 in your packet, the yellow highlighted area is the land that's being potentially considered. And there were questions during the stakeholder meeting about, okay, how many property owners, who are we displacing, or who might be displaced, that sort of thing. There's multiple tracks. Most of them, there might be a couple of residents, but most of it is commercial. Other questions?
gentlemen?
The
Thank
next
you.
item is even shorter, the infrastructure funding. So one of the aspects that we've been facing is we had a request from Congressman Crenshaw's office for projects for community project funding, federal allocations. We gave him a couple of utility projects, and then he came back and asked for a couple of drainage projects because that's where he wanted to emphasize his interest. So we gave him Bear Branch Dam. Bear Branch Dam is about a $5.5 million rehabilitation project. The facility is about 40 years old. There's a spillway and some soil cement that needs to be replaced. Congressman Crenshaw put in his pursuit of federal funds to chase $3.6 million. And so that would, if approved, and we think that legislation will get approved sometime before the end of September. If approved, those funds would be available by summer of 23. And what that does, the 5 months that pay into Bear Branch operation and maintenance, they would have $3.6 million less to put into it. So there's a benefit there. There are some other federal funds that we're chasing that will ultimately help the wholesale system, water and sewer system of the Woodlands that eventually, you all get to help pay for. And we're still facing those, but what we've kind of been told is those funds they're not really available until FY 24.
And that project is completely done by SJRA, is that correct?
And that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Ed, very much. That brings us to item number 10, consider and act on the fiscal year in 2022-23 budget for the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division.
So nothing has changed in the budget as presented in May, June, and beginning of July. This item is to direct your trustee on how to vote at the August trustees meeting where the official vote is taken.
Is there anything pertinent that we need to know specifically as of today to move forward on that, or is this just kind of for review purposes right now?
It's just really just for review and direction to the trustee. I mean, we talked about it in May and whatnot. So if you have any lingering questions, I can definitely go through those.
All right, so when it says consider and act on, what is the action that we need to take?
To vote.
Yeah, to vote to give your trustee direction on how to vote at the trustee meeting, because pursuant to your interlocal agreement creating what was Woodlands Joint Powers Agency, now it's Water Agency, each of the MUDs delegated to their trustee the authority to approve the river authority budget. We have, over time, more formalized the process for trustees to have direction from their boards, to have a vote of the MUD board as to how their trustee should vote. Not binding, you could have a trustee go rogue, but at least it's on the record as to how the MUD board wanted the trustee to vote.
So then the motion should be just to authorize the trustee to vote in favor of the budget as it's presented. Is that
Correct.
kind of what I'm understanding?
Yes, sir, exactly.
All right. So can we get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. We have a motion on the floor and a second to authorize the trustee to vote in favor of the budget as presented at the trustee meeting. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. You might have a rogue trustee. You better be careful. All right, moving on to item 11, discussion regarding the components of the surface water and groundwater pumpage fee and the SJRA process for calculating the same.
All right, so this begins on page 54 in your packet. We've had some new directors that have asked, basically how the GRP rate is calculated. And so what we've done is put together basically a PowerPoint that kind of walks you through the whole process. So if you're at the July 1st budget meeting, we walked through it at that point. It's pretty self-explanatory when you walk through it. So if you have any questions, I can go through them, but it is status quo. We've been doing this for 10 plus years, the same ways.
Okay. So nothing's changing, no recommendations for any changes, and we shouldn't see anything out of the ordinary in the process. All right. All right, so any questions or discussions or thoughts, gentlemen? Good. All right, thank you, Chris. Item number 12, review and discuss policy number RNS 35 drought contingency plan.
All right, I'll go ahead and cover that one with y'all. You should have from the Google Drive, and we also have handouts of the MUD drought contingency plan as well as the Senior Central River Authority Woodlands Division drought contingency plan. There's also drought contingency plans for the Surface Water Division of the River Authority as well as the Raw Water Division. Didn't put those in there, but I will tell you that all of the drought contingency plans are very much intertwined, where you could have a trigger in the Raw Water Division that forces the Surface Water Division to trigger, which forces the Woodlands Division to trigger, which forces the MUDs to trigger. So they're very much intertwined, the triggers. Let me start off by saying we're not close right now, believe it or not, with as dry as we are, we're not close to having to trigger our drought contingency plan for production purposes. I think we're still well under that. Chris has the numbers, but we're not close. But you may be hearing about Creekside having to go into their first stage of their drought contingency plan, as well as some of the regional water authorities in the Houston, Harris County, Fort Bend County area that are having to trigger their drought contingency plans. So wanted, especially our new directors, to be aware that this document's out there. We don't talk about it every month. It is in your policy manual, but we haven't talked about it since we did the 5-year review. You're required by law to review your drought contingency plan every 5 years. Our last review period was 2019. We actually haven't had to implement these since back in 2011, which was even before we had surface water. So we've been very fortunate in that regard. But it is there, and the purpose of it is to have a mechanism to achieve greater reductions in usage in extreme drought conditions, which things don't improve, we may be going in that direction. But because we have the defined irrigation, the odd even watering schedule here in the Woodlands that is over and above what most communities do, that actually takes us through both stage 1 of our DCP, which is voluntary, and our first mandatory stage of stage 2. All entities, once they hit stage 2, which is mandatory, they're having to put into place water use restrictions that are over and above what their community experiences on a daily basis. So we're fortunate in that regard that even once we hit that stage 1, our community isn't having to do anything more than what they're doing on a daily basis. And we've seen great results from that defined irrigation program over the years, from how we continue to have increasing population, but our water usage is actually decreased, which is very unique to be able to say that. So if we go past stages 1 and 2, and you'll see in the drought contingency plan what the various triggers are. But in the event we actually went to a more elevated stage of stage 3, then that's when our water customer behavior would have to significantly change. The water usage would be restricted to 1 day a week for automated irrigation systems, and then for handheld or hose-in sprinklers that currently have no restrictions on usage, those would also be restricted to 1 day a week. So that's when you start to see a real increase in restrictions for our water customers. It also puts us in more of an enforcement posture. You know, we do enforce our drought contingency, our defined irrigation plan. We've got water ambassadors who hang signs as warnings for first ones, and if people don't comply, then there are fines that go after that. But we would have to ramp up that enforcement as we move through the drought contingency plan stages. So no action for you to take today. Just wanted, especially our new directors, to be aware that this plan is out there, and if conditions don't improve, at some point, we may be in a position of having to implement it. That's all I have under 12. Happy to answer questions if you don't have them.
Do we have an idea going forward, whatever stage we're in right now, going forward, if we were to experience these same weather conditions for the next X number of days, when would that put us into the next stage?
Right now, I think we haven't had to implement it all. Do you have the numbers for our usage?
Yeah, the highest we've been so far is 30, maybe 32 million. The first stage kicks in at 45 million. Now, one thing, in 2011, we did not have surface water. Now we have surface water. So the additional demand above 32 million is all surface water. So I don't see us hitting 45 anytime soon.
Okay.
And we've been this way for like 2 months. So we should be.
So it's all demand driven, not so much weather driven per se.
Well, the weather drives the demand. So all the peak usage is irrigation. It's not like people take showers that much more. They may take a couple more showers because it's hot, but that's not what's driving it. It's water in the lawns. And so you're having to have your system serve that peak demand, which is increased irrigation due to drought conditions.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Brian.
And it's SJRA that is in charge of the different stages. That's in charge of the different triggers, right? That's what I thought.
Yes,
Okay.
we both sell surface water and groundwater.
Okay.
And maybe except for Creekside, all the other MUDs have the same drought contingency plan collectively, or?
Talk about for the Woodlands MUDs?
Yeah.
Yes. So the Woodlands MUDs, it's a consolidated plan that is the same terms for all of the MUDs. Once you get in, and that does not include Creekside. Creekside has their
Right, I
own
understand.
DCP because they have their own system on the Harris County side. And then among the other MUDs out in, they can have different triggers based on production usage or if they have surface water.
Yeah, good.
But at least here we're consistent.
Good deal. Any other questions, gentlemen? All right. So moving on to item number 13, receive the attorney's report.
No journal items to cover today. You need to cover 14, not a whole lot to update. Want to answer any general legal questions that y'all might have before we go to 14.
Any questions? All right, moving right along.
Moving to 14, status of the proposed annexation. So I have provided a draft. We talked last month about Conroe's request for a strategic partnership agreement and how we would need to make sure that the terms of that strategic partnership agreement were harmonized with the existing terms of the regional participation agreement between the township and the city of Conroe. So I have prepared a draft of that strategic partnership agreement that does address the regional participation agreement, and that the city of Conroe would not be able to exercise either a limited purpose or a full purpose annexation until after the expiration of the RPA. And if the township did incorporate during the term of the RPA, which goes out to 2057, then the strategic partnership agreement would automatically terminate. So we've addressed those terms. And so that's now in Conroe's court. I sent that or so ago to them. So that's in their court. We're also working with Howard Hughes to gather up the information that the city's requested for the development, what's proposed to be developed in the property. Howard Hughes has that information because they're the landowner who would be developing. So we're working with them to get that information gathered up and sent over to the city. And that's where we are.
Did any of the strategic partnership agreement, did it require you having to work with the township at all or get any information from them or get them involved in it at all? So the main concern was that if we did this, it would not impede or impose any problems on the original participation agreement as it stands today. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, you can't, the strategic partnership agreement could not supersede, but it could create unnecessary confusion.
I guess that's
So
what I was
that's what we were
asking.
trying to avoid, is that the strategic partnership agreement could be done sloppily and just do a boilerplate, and it would be in conflict, but it wouldn't trump the RPA, but it would create unnecessary confusion that would have to get unraveled. So we wanted to make sure that it was harmonized with the terms of the existing RPA.
And is there any reason why we should just reach out to the township to say, hey, here's what's going on. You guys want to take a look at this for any reason or?
It's really a mud issue.
Okay, just asking. All right, any other questions on that? Kevin?
No.
Thank you, Brian. All right, moving on to 15. Consider an act upon appointing a stakeholder subcommittee member to participate in SJRA engineering consultant meetings related to wastewater plant consolidation. Does this have any correlation to what we appointed Sean to, and would he be the most likely person to be appointed to this spot as well?
It is the same spot. I believe this is a carryover.
Oh,
from this
okay.
one.
All right. Well, then there you go. So there's nothing we need to do with that. It's just a,
So, yeah,
We're
Sean
done.
said.
perfect. I thought this was some other subcommittee that somebody created somewhere along the way. All right, so receive and consider information on Tachus fiber installation.
I'm assuming this has to relate to the people that came to your HOA meeting. Was it yesterday?
Yes.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
Yesterday. So I know they were asked to attend your meeting because they did such a good presentation to the Windsor Hills folks. I was here, so I was not able to attend the meeting, but maybe if some of you were there, you
Yeah. We were both there at our meeting.
Well, we know they're in your district, right? They just started. There is another company that is over there that we're trying to track down. They're not working for Tachus, but they are putting in fiber.
Easy fiber.
Yeah.
I think it's easy fiber. So
Mhm.
we're trying to get a hold of who's in charge, because they have or they will break stuff, and we want to make sure they're responsible. And also we want to make sure they're calling us for locates. That's the key. Their stuff's going to get broken, but it's definitely has a bigger chance of getting broken if you don't call us. So we're trying to track them down. If you all know who to contact, that would be helpful.
Did we get contact
I think we
information from
did,
them?
and I'll look it up, and I don't have it with me, but I'll try to get it to you guys.
Be good.
So
Okay.
they did report that their Tachus is 80% complete in Harper's Landing with their installation.
Okay.
And that they're done for the most part with the rest of the Woodlands. So we're kind of the tail end of what they were doing in the Woodlands. And that this EZ is coming behind them and sometimes simultaneously working with them because they're kind of going at the same. I think EZ is the name of the company itself. I don't know who the contractor is. And the woman who gave the report, Chelsea Baker from Tachus, gave us a report on Monday and said that, while they have reached out to the Woodlands Water to try to make sure they get location spots and all that, this Easy Group is not doing that yet. And they're coming in and sometimes they're in different spots, and Tachus is getting blamed for stuff that they're doing. And they've gotten a lot of, I guess, invoices from Woodlands Water about you've damaged this. And now they're realizing that it wasn't them, it was this other group per se. And correct me if I'm getting any of this
No, it's all
incorrect, Kevin.
They put in a different kind of pipe.
So,
No, same type of fiber, just a different company.
yeah, and they don't share space, so they're literally, Tachus is coming in and forcing the line in the ground, the conduit, and then they run the fiber through that.
Yeah.
They fix everything, and then Easy Fiber comes in after them and redigs everything up and puts the new conduit in, and Easy Fiber is only, she estimated, about 30% done in Harper's Landing, so we anticipate seeing a lot more of them. Yeah.
Yeah, any info you can give us would be helpful.
Okay.
We'll dig that up.
Yeah.
I do have a question regarding some of the damage that they've done, and this happened to me in particular. So they hit a water line supposedly on the city, quote unquote, city side, right? Not on the resident side, but on the service side, and they got it repaired. Well, once they did that, all of a sudden my water pressure is not the same. Well, if nosy me, I'm out there all the time because I work from home and I watch them from my office upstairs. So I'm going out there and looking at the holes that they're digging and what they're doing. So they seem to have put in a rubber, what looked to me like a rubber hose with 2 clamps on it for the area that they fixed. Now, I don't know whether we did it, Woodlands Water did it, or they did it, but it just didn't seem adequate enough for me. If it's coming from the service side, it seems like you would have to have a better, bigger conduit of water.
Typically,
So I don't know.
Home service is a 1-inch polyethylene tube. And if it's cut or nicked or something that leaks, we'll cut the pipe and put in a repair coupling. Now, I don't know what they did. I'll be happy to check your address and see if they repaired it under our supervision. We will bring the coupling to them while they got a W and watch them fix it. Or if we've got to fix it or replace the line, then I'll have a record of that. Yeah, I just don't know your address. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll get that to you. And again,
If it's low pressure, that maybe something that's crimped or something that's pinched.
well, and we'll have to get a plumber out too, but yeah, I would like to get that checked because not only on our street, on my house did they do something, but they damaged 2 other water spots down the same street, the same, like within a day or two. So I'm not sure if they're experiencing any problems, the other residents, but I know that issue is happening right now.
Well, let me check with my superintendent and get a hold of you. We'll have to come dig it out and check it.
I appreciate that. And again, not just for me per se, but it may be going on with some of the other residents as well.
When did it happen?
Oh, 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. I'll have to go back and look, but I can give you a rough idea. I'll look it up for you, Mike, after. I got pictures and it'll tell me the details on the picture. So, all right. Anything else on that? You okay with that, Kevin, as far as the
Yeah,
report
no,
goes?
yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess, so she mentioned it, and a question I have is she mentioned that we don't, in terms of Woodlands Water Authority, we don't mark anything. It's up to them to mark all the lines, and is that accurate?
That is not accurate. What we
Okay.
do is for depending on who the subcontractor is for TACUS.
Okay,
Some of them want us to mark, we call the mustaches. At the meter box, there's a line that kind of comes out of the box and goes to 2 houses.
Mhm.
So we mark the mustaches, what we call it.
okay,
Some contractors just want us to mark the road crossings. Okay, so we'll mark the road crossings. They'll pothole, what we call pothole, to dig up the homeowner service, the homeowners, or the mustaches.
Mhm.
So it just depends on who's working for you, but we
Okay.
will mark, we absolutely mark.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I talked to the guy who was the supervisor on that particular job that day because I was out there and he blamed Woodlands Water for everything.
Yeah,
Oh, they all-
that's why
We don't
I
mark
was asking,
anything,
yeah.
They always hitting lines.
Yeah.
It's not marked well enough and.
Right.
And one of your guys was out there 2 or 3 times within a 2-hour period to go back and forth with them and
Yeah.
not Woodlands Water, but the other people were just arguing in Spanish across the whole yard, back and forth at each other. So I didn't know I didn't know what was going on. All right. Anything else? Ken?
No, I'm good
All
on
right,
that.
thank
I'm
you.
good on that. Thank you.
All right. Item number 17, receive the general manager's report.
Okay, so we talked a little bit. Jim is having his back surgery today. Right before the meeting, I checked. Sherry, the administrative secretary, has not heard from his wife yet. So don't know how that's going, but keep him in your prayers for a speedy recovery. At the trustee meeting, the trustees did approve recording the meetings, audio and video recording of the meetings. That was kind of a milestone there. If you look in your packets, Mud 67 did receive their loan and grant approval for the Panther Branch, Bear Branch Drainage Improvement Project. So that was kudos to them. AMI, which we've been done in your district, you guys were the first ones that were finished, but AMI is 99% complete. We're hoping to be here next month to tell you we're done. The warranty has started and we've just got a couple hundred left to go and it's creeping toward the finish line. And the final thing is the personnel committee approved an 11% salary budget increase to the to the salary budget for this year. And that includes funds for a new executive position to replace Mr. Stinson as he retires next year. And also that 11% also includes a 2.5% merit, promotion, cost of living, inflation adjustment for all of us. And that's all I've got, basically. There's a letter in the back of your packet from the River Authority and us to the Lakeside Cove residents. If you remember, Dr. Shelley came to the meeting, the trustees meeting last week or last month, and talked about what's been done. There's kind of a sequence of events and how much money's been spent on the odor control issue for the Lakeside Cove residents. That is all I've got, unless you've got specific questions.
All right. Any questions? Okay. All right. So moving on to item number 18, receive the Woodlands Water Trustee Report. I did attend the meeting as well. And as Mike was saying, that it's important, I think, to note that the Personnel Committee of the Trustee Board recommended the increase, but that 11% that Mike was referring to is because that includes that new position. It's not an 11% increase across the board for all
Right.
employees. The increase across the board was roughly 2 point something percent. And the reason the number is 11% because it's a whole nother employee that's a high level sort of payout. So don't walk away thinking that everybody's getting an 11% increase in salary adjustment, because that's not the case. And then the other thing I think that was also Mike mentioned is the complaints of the odor coming from out of a wastewater treatment number 1. Dr. Gibbs was at the meeting previous to that and brought up some other issues, but it was pointed out at this past trustee meeting that in no time, and I don't know all the numbers and I might need some help from some of you guys, but at no time was the measurement of odor abuse higher or above what was a standard, allowed, and not anywhere close. It was like a third of what the mechanism number was. So, and it was also pointed out at the meeting that I think collectively Woodlands Water spent, $500,000 between surveys and what to do and consultants and so forth and so on. And that as far as I think the trustees were concerned, the issue was basically closed because there's nothing else that anybody can do at this point. And not having the measurement reach anywhere near its
There's been no
trigger point.
violations. There's been just done a bunch of good faith efforts to try to be good neighbors, and we're kind of done.
Yeah.
Nothing else to do.
Invite them to come out to Brenham and smell the skunk in my barn. That'll solve the problem.
I thought a very interesting thing that came out of that discussion when they were talking about it was there were several homes where, they were having an odor problem, but the odor problem was caused from within the home because they didn't cap an exhaust pipe or something, a sewer exhaust pipe. They didn't cap it properly. And so the odor was coming from the house itself, not the treatment plant. So, but those were my takeaways from the trustee
Yeah, a couple of those
meeting.
homes over there had a third floor laundry room that had a floor drain that they never used. They just didn't need it, didn't use it. And the P-trap had dried up in that upper laundry room, and that's what was causing the odor.
Mhm. And
Third floor, yeah.
so these odor complaints that are in here from November and then from February, is it the same resident?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. It's the same. I think there's like 43 complaints over like a 5-6 year period. For the most part, it's been the same 3 to 5 residents.
Okay, and is there anything, from the standpoint of trying to, are we sharing this information with them as well of what the results are, of what the limits are, how much we are below them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're aware that there's not been a ticket violation given, but doesn't
Still not good enough.
doesn't appease them.
Okay.
They still smell it.
Okay.
Well, and to Dr. Shelley's credit, she was just here on behalf of, well, at the time, I think she was here on behalf of herself, but, as a township director, she's trying to appease her constituency,
Yeah.
which is the residents of the Woodlands. So we get that. But yeah, based on all the reports and all the reporting, there's nothing else that can be done other than, maybe some other type of mitigation that's not been thought of yet or dreamed up yet. I don't know, but so again, those were my takeaway from the trustees report. Any other questions or comments on that? All right. Item number 19, Recess to close session if necessary,
Not necessary.
not necessary. And item number 20, we're already reconvened because we didn't go anywhere. Discussing of future agenda items. Anything that we want to place on the
We'll
future?
have the draft budget for review, and we'll also have the recommendation for your tax rate. And so I think, Dee going to make sure we've got our forms for August and September.
You need a form for both, because you tell me what you want me to adopt in August, September. At your board meeting is your public hearing, and we adopt the rate in September.
You may have a little issue in September with me, but let me tell you right now, because no, I should be good on September, August. Okay, I think I'm good. Any conflicts, gentlemen, August and September that you know of?
Yeah.
But we'll keep up with you, but
Next meeting, August 17th.
Should be good there.
and September 21st, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, you were saying the draft budget and what else was gonna happen?
The recommendation on the tax rate. Recommendation.
All right. Anything else? And with that, it is having no other business brought before this committee at 12:46, or I guess officially 12:45, we are adjourned.
Thank you all.